And I love films, I must say. So I streamed yesterday. I played some Doom on my stream, and I got a little drunk. And immediately upon ending the stream, I decided to ingest magic mushrooms. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know how much really I ended up taking. But anyway, I had a very intense experience. And during this intense experience, I watched the following movie. I watched Inception, y'all. Now, I want to say that I've seen this movie before many times. This is one of my favorites. And it was phenomenal. I mean, again, watching this movie on shrooms is way better than watching it while sober. I'm going to be honest with y'all. Okay? This movie, I mean, I'm willing to say that this is a perfect movie. Like, and that's watching it sober. But, like, watching this on drugs, I mean, it's a perfect movie. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I don't know. Like, it's a masterpiece. It's a 10 out of 10. There's zero flaws. The acting is great. The music is great. The plot is great. The writing is great. The cinematography is great. I mean, it's a perfect movie. I mean, I could stop the review there, but I'm not going to. But, like, if you haven't seen Inception, I mean, again, it's one of the best movies of all time. Like, if I were to construct a top 5, this is on my top 5. I mean, it's a phenomenal film. It's long too. It's 2.5 hours, right? But every single second of it it's incredible. So anyway, so I got really fucked up. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. When the movie first started, I had it synced. I had it ready to start before I had ingested the drug. But when I sat down to watch the movie, I'm not gonna lie to you. So the movie opens at like the end, right? Like where Leo is going to save the Saito character from the Gon Zone, aka Limbo. And I'm going to be honest with you, when the movie started, I had no idea. I had never seen this movie before. Like the first half of this movie was like watching it for the first time because I was having a very intense experience. And watching this movie for the first time, but knowing you already like it, I mean, like, what a privilege. But anyway, I just have to say, now, as someone that has extensive experience with lucid dreaming, the dream logic of this movie is, like, 10 out of 10. It's right on the money. Like, as far as, like, logic goes, right, the only thing in this movie that's fiction is, like, synchronized dreaming. And, like, that's pretty much it. Like everything else, like, and the weird drugs that they used, but, like, synchronized dreaming is, like, the only thing in this movie that is fictional. Like, every other aspect is, like, based on how dreams actually work. And so, you know, the plot line is basically they try to incept someone, which is the concept of, like, making them do something that they want to do, but going inside of their subconscious to make them think that they came to that idea and conclusion on their own terms, which makes it more like, you know, they're more willing to do it. Like, if you put a gun to someone's head and say, do this thing I want, you know, they're going to be more hesitant or resistant. But if you go into their brain and plant the idea there so that they come up with it themselves or feel that they came up with it themselves, right? You know, that's the idea of the movie. So anyway, wow, what a movie. So I gotta say, like, the first, like there's, I would say this movie is, like, divided into, like, 2 parts, right? You've got, like, everything before the plane ride where they, like, start the actual project, which is, like, that's, like, an hour in. So, like, the first hour is just setup, right? It's just setup. And, like, the setup is great. Like, the setup is very good. I mean, it's just very good. Like, there's, like, a lot of the world building, like, where the characters are talking to each other and going inside of these dreams and waking up, and then, like, it cuts to these, like, parts. You don't know what's real and what's not. You know, I'm going to say that I'm willing to suggest that the entire movie takes place in a dream. I mean, it also doesn't matter, right? Because, like, really, like, you know, I mean, is anything real anyway, right? So anyway, the movie plays a lot around the concept of that, you know, you don't know if you're dreaming, right? And typically, the only way to really find out if you're dreaming is to trace back your steps. And so, for me, as a lucid dreamer, this is something that I do every day of my life, in dreams and in the real world. I don't know, once every couple hours, I just think about my entire day. It's like a habit that I've built, because I love doing lucid dream stuff. I've had dreams that have felt perceptually in the dream that they've lasted for multiple years. I've had that experience before. I've had dreams where I have fallen asleep in the dream and then dreamed within the dream. I've had that happen. And so, like, again, I would say that the dream logic in this movie is phenomenal. Like, it's all real. I want to be I don't know if people have extensive experience with dreaming like I do. I don't think most people do that kind of stuff. But I think I'm willing to say that the only fictional part of this entire movie are, like, obviously the characters, but, like, the synchronized dreaming. I personally don't believe in synchronized dreaming. Now, I'm willing to be proven wrong, and I'm willing to be under the assumption that synchronized dreaming is theoretically possible in the future. I'm willing to say that. But as of this moment, I'm going to be honest, I don't believe in synchronized dreaming. I know some people have said that they've had those experiences, but I am more of the mind that your brain hallucinates those experiences and they just seem like they really happened. That's my opinion, but I'm willing to be moved on that. But anyway, so basically, this guy hires the main character, Leo. I forget his name, actually. It's something Cobb, but I forget his first name. But anyway, so he hires the main character to incept some business rival, right? Like, it's just like a rival businessman who's, like, monopolizing a certain industry that's not good for his business, so he wants to incept him to make him break up his business. Pretty simple political motives, right? And so then, all the characters in this guy's squad, essentially, they're like, that's not possible. That's not gonna happen. But Leo's like, nah, bro, it's gonna fucking happen. Trust me, I've done it before, right? And, the ending of the movie is great because it's like, oh, who did you do it on? Oh, I did it on my wife and I drove her to suicide and she killed herself. But did she kill herself? I mean, personally, I'm of the belief that the whole thing was a dream and that she woke up from the dream and that Leo and everyone else has been dreaming the entire movie. I think the whole movie. I think the whole movie is a dream. I think that that's the most likely occurrence. But anyway, so they hire him to do this job, and then he brings together a ragtag squad, meets up with some old friends, and then hires a new person to, like, build some dream worlds, right? And then, like, so the reason why, he hires a new person to enter the squad is, like, it's a vehicle for him to explain how dreams work to the audience, right? Because he's explaining how dreams work to this new person in the squad, right? And that sets up all the story so you understand how the whole, like the first hour of the movie is just set up, right? It's a 2.5 hour movie, right? The second hour and a half is, like, its own distinct movie, right? The first hour is just the setup. But I mean, you gotta watch the whole thing. I'm not trying to say that you should only watch the last 90 minutes. But anyway, so they do the setup. They talk about how, like, the main thing that you can tell is a dream is you don't know how you got there. 99% of the time, when you dream, you don't know how you got there. Now, I will say I've had dreams where, so this is something I've had frequently. It's called a false awakening, where I've had dreams where I've woken up either, like, from a nap that I don't remember taking, or, from just, like, waking up in the morning. I've had dreams where I wake up and have had an entire day that, like, occur that feels normal. Like, I've had dreams where I've come on, like, here and have done, like, a fucking podcast, and, like, I've had dreams like that. And so, I mean, like, in retrospect, I can tell that they were dreams, and at the time, like, it was, but I've had dreams like that where I can retrace my steps to, I woke up and I did this, I got coffee, I walked my dog, and but most dreams, you just kind of, you're in the middle of it, you don't really remember because, like, short-term memory is something that's really difficult to recall when you're in the dream world. But anyway, so that's kind of the point. They describe that whole thing, and that's very true. So anyway, so then they set up the heist, the Inception. They set it up. So then, they get this guy on a plane. Realign, feel free to ask your question. They get this guy on a plane. They all, buy out the rest of the plane. They don't, the guy doesn't know that. And it's, then they set it up, and then they go into, I think there's 4 layers or 5 layers. I think there's 5 layers when you think about it. Because if you are under the impression that the whole thing is a dream, that's 5 layers. But anyway, so they do the dream within the dream within the dream. And then once they're in the dream within the dream within the dream, then they got to go deeper, of course. Right? Because the dream within the dream within the dream is breaking down. So the only option is to go into a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. And so then they do that, right? So then they try to incept this guy by convincing him that his father wanted him to do something or whatever. That's the side plot. That's the thing about this movie is the plot is irrelevant. I'm going to be honest with you, the plot is not is the least interesting part of the movie is the actual plot line. Right? The most interesting part of the movie are 1, the mechanics, 2, the world building, 3, the cinematography, the music. Oh my God, the music is incredible. The music is incredible. And one of my favorite parts about the movie is the last hour, right? Where they do the constant scene changes from each dream layer, right? So it's you got the guy driving the truck in the rain, and then you've got the motherfucker floating in midair in the hotel, trying to figure out how to get them to kick out of the dream. That's another logic, by the way, is that in order to wake up, it's the idea of if you fall off your bed, you wake up. Typically you fall off your bed, you wake up. I've woken up on the floor falling off my bed before, but typically, the feeling of falling can wake you up. I 90% of the time, if I fall off my bed, I'll wake up just from the thud, right? So, that's the idea. So they're all trying to, in order to get out of the dream, you need to, do, a kick of some kind to make them feel like they're falling, and so then they'll wake up. So that, but each layer that they go in, right, they leave one of the squad members behind, and they're trying to their kicks fail, right? They set up, the plan fails, right? And they have to improvise. And that's what's so good. It's so you learn the mechanics of how the world works. You learn the mechanics of how the dream logic works. And then the plan immediately, they go into the actual part of the movie that's the Inception part, and then immediately all the plan goes to shit. It all fucking falls apart literally within the first 30 seconds, right? Right, Saito gets shot and he's dying, and that's a big segment of and then they're all improvising, and that's what's great. I love the part of the hotel where the fucking sets spinning around and they're having fucking kung fu combat and shit, running on the wall is great. That's one of my favorite parts. But again, one of my favorite parts is the limbo, the way limbo is represented. I like to refer to it as the Gone Zone. Where it's these guys, it's a Minecraft server, you haven't logged into your Minecraft server in fucking 5 years, and it's got all these buildings you remember building, but they're, it's the vibe is just fantastic, right? It's the fucking oceans with the fucking tall building. It's really good vibe. Anyway, so the main character, Cobb, stays into the Gone Zone to try to rescue Saito because he died or something, and he died within the dream, and then his, mind went into, the infinite subconscious or whatever, so he has to go get him out, and then, oh shit, that's the start of the movie. Now, again, I was on shrooms when I watched this movie, and so, the first hour, I'm gonna be honest, it was like watching the movie for the first time. At least, the first half hour, I had no idea what the plot was. I have seen this movie several times, but I'd done so many drugs that I completely forgot what the plot of the movie was. And I'm gonna be honest, experiencing the first hour ish, half an hour to an hour, was I was kind of starting to remember what I was watching. But experiencing the first half an hour for the first time, right, especially because the first part of the movie takes place at the end of the movie, right, it was very bewildering. I gotta say, it was very fun. It was very enjoyable, and I would recommend that experience to anyone, except I don't recommend that experience to anyone because drugs are bad and don't do them, they're illegal. But anyway, it's just great. The idea of aging in a movie, or aging in a dream, rather. I feel that. I've had dreams where I'm like super young. I've had dreams where it's like I wake up at random points in my life. Like I wake up and I'm like 15 years old. I wake up and I'm like 7 years old. I've had dreams like that where I'm like aging backwards. Sometimes I have dreams where I age forwards, but that's not nearly as common because I've actually lived as, you know, a child and a teenager and a young adult and so forth. I've not actually lived as like a middle-aged person or an older person, right? So it's like that's more theoretical. But I've had dreams where I age backwards or I wake up at random points in my life. And that's like a theme as well. And like Cobb's subconscious is that like, you know, one of the characters like spies on him in a really invasive way. And like, so his dream structures are like basically just memories, right? Like when he dreams, he like goes in there in a way that just like he relives random days of his life. And so that's super interesting. Like, I don't know, the dream logic, I feel like Christopher Nolan is definitely a lucid dreamer. I mean, I don't know how you could write a movie like this without being very extensively knowledgeable about the world of lucid dreaming. Again, this is a masterpiece of cinema. I can't praise it enough. The music, the editing, the way that they do, like, especially at the end when all the layers, like every character like that's left behind is trying to organize the kicks or whatever for all the other characters. And there's like 5 layers going on. It's just great. The music is phenomenal. Like, I'm on the edge of my seat, even though, like, you know, I've seen the movie before, especially by the time I got to the end, I remembered what movie I was watching. So, like, I already know really what's going on, but it's just so good, right? It's just so good. And then, like, when you watch this, I don't know, if you've ever seen this movie once and you've only seen it once, this is a movie I feel like you could watch it like 10 times and like you can still pick up new information every time you watch it. That's my opinion, because I know I've seen this movie at least 5 times before yesterday. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was catching a lot of like new stuff that I'd never really seen before. Like, you know, like just like a lot of like the combat stuff is really interesting. Like, in the way that like the projections, right? Because that's one of the other things. It's like when you dream, right? You have people in your dream, and theoretically your brain, like I read a rumor, I don't know if this is true, but a lot of people say that your brain cannot generate new faces, that it only like uses faces from people that you've seen, right? It's just that we have seen, like, you know, when you watch movies or whatever, you see like on all the extras, like your brain just registers that somewhere deep in your subconscious, right? Like when you walk outside and like go on the bus and you're just like around other people, your brain will just recognize faces. So, you know, I don't necessarily know if that's true, but anyway, the way that the projections work is that, you know, whoever's subconscious, like every other extra or actor in the dream is like actually just their subconscious projection of like just random things, right? And so like there's a lot of like manipulating you know, like there's the one part where Cobb tries to get the Mark, who's the person they're trying to incept, to turn against his own subconscious. That's one of my favorite parts, where it's like, you know, he gets him to not trust his own subconscious because he gets him to think that he's in someone else's dream. So that's actually everyone else's subconscious. And it's just like, it's really good. There's a lot of deception in this movie. There's a lot of like, one of the big aspects of this movie is that dream logic, like you just like, there's a lot of go with the flow and improvising. And I know I mentioned that before, but it's like, you know, when you're in a dream and you realize you're in a dream, right? Like, you know, theoretically, all the logic goes out the window, right? You can do whatever you want, but they do a lot of like really good explanations to like keep like, you know, the Mark Fisher from like just like flying around like Superman or whatever. I mean, I'm sure that, you know, I don't know if the character in the movie has trained to do that in any capacity, but also like the characters in this movie, none of them like do any like supernatural stuff, even though, you know, you can make the argument that the movie would have been a little cheesier if like Leo was flying around like a fucking, you know, cartoon character. You can make that argument that like grounding it in like a real world physical sense, you know, like with gravity and stuff. You know, there is a couple zero gravity stuff, but, you know, making it more grounded in physical reality is like just easier to watch and digest. But, you know, that's a whole thing. But anyway, they do mention a lot of like, they have to like, there's a lot of psychological manipulation to get people to, you know, believe that they're dreaming or believe that they're not dreaming and stuff. It's just great. I really don't know how to describe how good this movie is, other than like I could talk about this movie for literally 2.5 hours, but like instead of listening to me talk about the movie, you should just watch the movie. I mean, even if you've seen it 10 times, you should just watch the movie again. I mean, it's phenomenal, right? It's phenomenal. And then the plot line with like Cobb's wife or whatever, that he feels guilty because he incepted her into thinking that she was still in a dream, and then she killed herself in real life or whatever. But did she kill herself in real life, or did she actually kill herself and then wake up and then Cobb's been asleep the whole time? It's possible, right? Who knows? Like, there's really no way to know. And like, again, that's what's so crazy about this movie, is that it really does a great job of capturing just how real dreams can be. And I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like 90% of people in the world, I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to be leaning into like, I feel like 90% of people that live in like, I feel like indigenous people that like are far away from like the internet and far away from society as we know it, I feel like they are much more in tune with the dream space and the dream world than a lot of people in modern society and civilization. I feel like 90% of people that are walking around and talking in this civilization that we live in our society, are people that are unfamiliar with how dreams work in any way. And it like, to me, I've had dreams that have felt like years have passed. I've had dreams where it's like, it's like 2027. I've had dreams where it's like, I age backwards. I've had dreams where I relive like years of my life. Like I have dreams where I wake up when I'm like 17, or just random number. And then like I'm like living weeks of my childhood, and like the events don't have to be actually one-to-one with your memory. They just have to be good enough for you to think that they're real, right? And that's the thing, is like when you're dreaming, like you're just in that kind of state where it's like you don't like, most people aren't really present. I would say most people are not. Like I would say most people are on autopilot most of the time. Most people are not really observing what's going on in their world all the time, because it's just, you wake up, you go to work, you do this, you got a routine, it's simple, you just kind of go with the flow. But anyway, so in a dream, that's kind of like, it's that, except it's way more so, right? Because like the dreams in our evolution, I don't know why dreams exist or whatever. But like, it's our brain trying to interpret information from the base reality, or whatever base reality even means, right? Like, it's possible that there is no base reality. But anyway, so dreams are you trying to interpret information in some way, but like, there's no real like logic to it, right? So it's like, you can just live in a dream, and it's like the dream, like, especially another thing is if you do lucid dreaming practices like I do, and you tried it, like I would meditate and stuff and mindfulness, all that crap, right? Like, that makes your dreams even stronger at like being realistic, right? And so like when you are really taking note of like, wow, like look at this wall that I've got going on, like, whoa, like, when you feel things, does anyone like, I don't know, for me, I love like touching walls, like just in general. I love touching walls. I love like touching random things. I love touching trees. I love just touching a bunch of stuff, right? So anyway, that makes it so that when I dream, right, I have all this sensory information where it's like, oh, I know like a tree. If I touch a tree in a dream, it feels one-to-one with touching a tree in real life. And it makes it very difficult to interpret, reality from a dream. And that's kind of like the main thing of this movie, is that the character Cobb and like the rest of the squad, but mostly Cobb, right? Like he's so involved in going in and out of the dream worlds that like there is literally no way for you to like know what the difference is. So in order to explain to the audience how they know whether they're not in reality, is they have this thing called a totem. I'm going to be honest with you. The totem stuff, that's like, in my opinion, I may have said earlier that the only thing that's illogical is the synchronized dreaming drug stuff, but I think the totem stuff doesn't make any sense. I'm going to be honest with you. I can't figure out the totem stuff at all. And I think it's just a vehicle, like as a way to have people that aren't familiar with dreams to like have, like, I think it's just a vehicle for Chris Nolan to talk to the audience about something. I really don't think that the logic of the totems makes sense, right? Because if only you know what the totem is going to be, like if it's the loaded die and it's going to be on 5 or whatever, when you throw the die and it's on 5, how does that give you any information? I don't know. Maybe there's more to that I missed. It's possible. But the totem stuff doesn't really make any sense, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe I think it's just like a way for the people that aren't familiar with the concept of lucid dreaming. I think it's just a way for them to like be able to like enjoy the movie better, and that's fine. That's all good, you know. But anyway, I mean, this movie is a masterpiece. I could keep talking about it, but it's a masterpiece. It's 10 out of 10. Like, I can't praise it enough. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I would go as far as to say it's one of, objectively speaking, the best movies of all time. I know a lot of people criticize people that try to speak objectively. I think if you were to use any objective measures, like, this is just like, it's a 10 out of 10 on every scale. Like, on music, writing, editing, cinematography, acting, every metric that you could possibly come up with is perfect. Like, there's no flaw. Like, if I were to come up with you, like, and say, like, oh, this part, like, you know, 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 13 seconds, right? You can see that there's like a smudge on the wall in the background. Like, I couldn't even, maybe it's possible that there's a smudge on the background at that timestamp. But I don't, like, I really can't, I need to express that it's such a good movie. I really don't know how a movie this good could even exist. I'm not even sure how it's even possible. But it is possible, and it does exist, and I watched it yesterday on Shrooms, and it was phenomenal. And I can't recommend it enough.